to Permission to Shift, where we help you remove limits, transform fear, and create a life you love to live. Today's guest is Scott Robley, a Master Certified Crucial Conversations trainer, also Master Certified in the Power of Habits and Getting Things Done. Scott has 20 plus years of experience in education, training, and public speaking, applying his inspired work in education to entrepreneurial and corporate worlds, cutting through the chaos of running a business. Scott is an internationally recognized public speaker and master storyteller, committed to changing the world by changing behavior. It is with great pleasure that I welcome him to our show today.
Well, thank
Scott,
you, Anna. Thank you for
welcome.
having me. That's a great introduction.
Amazing. So I can't even tell you how excited I am about this conversation. I picked up Crucial Conversations a year or so ago. I actually found it in one of these little libraries that you see on the sides of the streets in neighborhoods where you pick a book and leave a book kind of thing. And I thought, I've been hearing about this from my other experts. I need to pick this up and read it. Literally changed all of my relationships, and it did it almost instantly. It was super phenomenal. But
I've had the same experience when I first read the book prior to even coming to Battle Smarts and being a trainer. It just has had that kind of an impact on the way that we really get results in our lives and strengthen relationships and move forward. We like to say that whenever you're feeling stuck, there's usually a crucial conversation that you're not having or not having very well.
oh my goodness, yes. Okay, so before we dive into that, can you give us just a little bit of history on how you got into Crucial Conversations?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm an educator by trade. It's interesting. I spent 20 years as a teacher, got my degree in elementary education of all things, but then decided to go the private sector versus public. Taught high school for 20 years. Then felt I just needed to go do something more. I felt like adults needed me as well, and so went into an entrepreneurial space. Started working for an organization that was supporting entrepreneurs, helping them be better at running their businesses. And at the end of the day, I'm just a trainer. I'm a teacher. And so I really love, through some roundabout different training opportunities, I got very fortunate. A good friend of mine has been working here at Battle Smarts for a number of years, and we've been trying to sync up. And again, it just made it happen. And so here we are working for a company that is just aligned with my purpose and my mission and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I feel incredibly blessed for that.
Amazing. Okay, so can you now, so you've gotten into this amazing corporation. How has that really affected you personally? And then how have you brought that into your help to corporations?
Yeah, it's interesting because the concepts that we teach really are about helping people just be better humans. I mean, my own personal mission is to unleash human potential. I want to help everybody be the very best version of themselves that they possibly can be. I have a unique mission statement. My mission statement is to pick up the trash, and that really just means two things. Number one, I want to do big things, and in order to do big things, you've got to be willing to do the small things. So I literally, if I see trash, I try to pick it up because I want to leave the world better. But the other concept is whenever you go camping, right, the general rule of thumb is you always leave it better than when you found it. And so you pick up the trash, you leave. I want to leave everyone better than when I found it. People often say you should leave no trace. Now, I want everyone to know where I've been because I've made an impact. I want people to feel better, to be better. And so picking up the trash is just helping me to remember how do I help people be better? I want to leave everyone better than when I found them.
So very much a service-driven role.
Absolutely. That's, as an educator, that's what it's all about. It's in my DNA. That's my why. That's my purpose. I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. So I'm all about what is my purpose? What is my mission? And that's what it is. And to be able to find an organization like Vital Smarts, which is committed to changing the world through behavior. And that's what we are. We talk a lot about in organizations about culture, and people want to improve their culture. Well, what is culture? I mean, culture, I always say culture is what we do when no one else is looking. It's our behaviors. I mean, the culture of an organization, the culture of a team, the culture of a family really is the makeup of individual behaviors that we all put together. And so if I can help people be able to build better culture through behaviors, through dialogue and some of the other content that we get to deliver, I mean, that's just gold.
Okay, so can you speak a little bit to that? You're saying you want to help people build better behaviors. So, what are the most common blocked up issues people have in their behavior that you're helping with?
Yeah, there's no doubt, Joseph Greening, one of our authors and founders, he always says really the strength of an organization, a team, a relationship really is the lag time between when we know we've got an issue and we step up and speak to it. I mean, that's really the
Mm.
challenge, is our ability to have dialogue, to speak to the concerns, the struggles, the challenges. We have natural tendencies that each one of us has, that when we're confronted with what we call a crucial moment, and a crucial moment is defined by when the stakes are high, emotions are strong, and opinions
Mm.
vary, when you put those three things together, we've got a moment. And what we've discovered is that successful people, when they can navigate these are moments we call of disproportionate influence, because if you
Mm.
can navigate those, it can have huge impacts on the rest of your organization, the rest of your purpose and goals and results. And so if we can help people navigate those moments when we either want to run away or dominate, right? We tend to have our own style of stress when adrenaline kicks in, and that amygdala brain kicks in, and we're in that fight or flight mode. And I would say the majority of us, myself included, we just retreat, right? We want to
Hmm.
avoid conflict. We don't want to say anything. And so rather and we've done this is over 3 decades, right, worth of research, of study, of behavioral science. And what we know is that people continue to run away, right? They
Yep.
avoid, but instead of speaking up, what do they do instead? They ruminate. They talk to other people about it. They do all the things that are not healthy, that do not make the situation any better. So if we can empower people with not only creating a culture, we did a study not too long ago where we found that only 1 in 3 people said that they don't have a culture that promotes dialogue, that is encouraging. I think we're getting better than that. I think 2/3 are saying, yes, we want you to speak up. But here's the real staggering stat. Only 1% of them that we surveyed said they feel confident in their ability to do so. It's like, it's fine. You can say, we want you to speak up. We want you to share your opinion, but they don't have the skills. They don't know how to do so in a way that doesn't stir emotion, that allows for dialogue. And so to be able to equip people and enable them with that, I just am grateful I get to do that.
Okay. There is so much to unpack here. There is
Yes,
days of workshops to unpack here.
absolutely.
But let's start right at the beginning because that's where I had to start. And I think most people are totally unaware. They're totally unaware of just how poorly they actually handle crucial communications and crucial situations. So let's start at ground zero. Where do you start people in this process?
Yeah, I think the first place is really identifying where we are stuck, right? Recognizing where we're not getting the results that we want, where we are feeling some of the strain in relationships. Because if you can, awareness brings choice. There's no doubt that when I
Mm.
become aware and mindful, then I can do something about it. And so I think it begins with just beginning to recognize. And there's no doubt, Anna, that now that we're in this virtual space, the things that we've been experiencing for years and years have been escalated. I mean, we are seeing that in the
Yes.
past, it was like 22% of people we would survey would say that they would not step up and speak. They would let things go on for weeks before they would try to address an issue. And now in this virtual space, that number's doubled. We're now like 54% of people are saying, I am less likely to step up in a virtual space than I used to when I was in a in-person situation. So we're
Whoa.
seeing now that distance is truly destroying dialogue.
Oh my gosh. So how do we step into this? So what I'm hearing is that you're saying most people are just trying to avoid it. They're running into safety. So what is the first step to getting yourself ready for something like this?
Yeah, I think, the first thing is, the way we go about it, we want to invite dialogue. We want to make sure that we are constantly encouraging and inviting. We want beyond. And in many cases, that's a great first step. Just truly saying, hey, I want to talk about this. Can we talk about it? And so I think a first step is really trying to create, at least within my own container. I think one of the
Hmm.
challenges that we have, particularly organizationally, is we look big picture and we think I can't change the culture of my organization. organization. But what we've learned is if one person has the skill set and ability to step up to difficult or risky conversations, it can have a domino effect. It can have a ruminating effect on everybody. So I think number one, it's just to kind of invite the dialogue. And I think the other thing that will help me, I always like to say curiosity is key. So I think if we can suspend judgment, if we cannot, I think one of the challenges, we make lots and lots of assumptions as to why people do what they do or aren't doing what they're doing. And so I think if I can suspend my judgment, so I want to create a culture where I'm inviting dialogue in my space, and I don't want to assume why people are doing what they're doing. So that it almost pulls me into dialogue because I don't know exactly. So I want to find out. So I think that's two real key ingredients. Number one, invite it and just avoid assumptions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dig into this one because we are meaning making machines, and the internal dialogues we have can destroy preemptively any conversation that's coming up. Can you speak to that and maybe something people can do to start recognizing and then deal with their inner dialogues?
Absolutely. You know, one of the biggest skills that we teach is this concept of mastering our stories. You know, we all have kind of a path to action, right? What happens is we see or hear something, we experience something, and then we naturally tell ourselves a story about what we think that means. We let our assumptions, we make our judgments, and then here's the real kicker, Anna. Those stories actually create emotions. And those emotions then lead to the actions that we take. And so, you know, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Christopher Robin, the Winnie the Pooh, right? I grew up with Winnie the Pooh, and Winnie the Pooh drops some pretty powerful one-liners in this movie, which is why my kids don't like going to movies with me because everything's like, I can use that, right? But he says this, Winnie the Pooh says this profound statement. He says, to get where I'm going, I walk away from where I've been. And I'm like, whoa, a deep thought from a stuffed bear, right? And when you think about that path to action, I see something, I hear it, I tell myself a story that creates an emotion, and then I act on those emotions. And usually those are not good actions. So if I can get where I'm going, I walk away from where I've been. If I can retrace that path to action, if I can stop and I identify that I'm telling myself a story, and then I can do this skill. The skill is simple. Separate facts from stories. Focus on what am I really seeing? What am I hearing? What am I experiencing? Because when I share facts with people, that doesn't invite emotion. There's not a lot of emotion to the fact that, hey, I noticed this, I saw this. But when I lead with, you know, you're really aggressive or you're forward, which is, it may be true, but it's a story, and that story invites other people's emotion. And then what happens is it becomes an emotional game of poker where we say, I'll see your stress and I'll raise you some frustration. And pretty soon we've got like a pot full of anger and we can't, and there's no dialogue in that. We can't. So it really is about getting emotion out of what we call the pool of meaning, which is kind of that group shared IQ. And it starts with curiosity. It starts with not assumptions, suspending stories and say, listen, what are the facts? And then let's talk about these facts. And it's okay to share your story if it's, you know, as a kind of a teaser to get them to share their meaning. Hey, I saw this, kind of makes me feel like this. And now we're dialoguing. And if we're right, they'll confirm and we'll talk about it. But if we're wrong, they'll definitely want to talk to us about it. So it's really about getting emotion out of the pool, if you will.
Okay, can you give us some more? I'm loving the examples. And I think, especially for you guys out there that are just watching this right now on YouTube, this is huge for you too. Can you give us some more examples, say in the workplace with a coworker, of fact versus fiction conversation?
Yeah, you know, when you start to think about, you know, we like I said, we are all rooted in research and behavioral science. We want to make sure that the things that we're teaching are rooted in that. And when you think about some of the most common kinds of conversation struggles that we have, particularly now in this virtual space, we obviously, when there's poor performance, right? When we're seeing performance decline, or when there's gaps in what we were expecting and what we actually get. Obviously, when there's biases and inequalities, I mean, we can, those are things we begin to experience. And probably a big one also is, now that we're working remotely and we still depend upon each other, what happens when I'm dependent upon you and you've missed a deadline? And let's say you've now missed a deadline a couple of times, right? And so my natural story is, you don't care. You're lazy. You're not a hard worker. You're distracted, right? Those are ugly stories that bring with them a lot of emotions that will then carry over into your language, but also into your behavior. So if I can suspend that and I can step up and say, hey, Anna, can we talk for a minute about this project that we're working on? I've noticed, right? Here's facts. I've noticed that you were supposed to have your part of the project done on Friday. Here it is on Monday, and I still don't have it. Can you help me understand what's going on? Right? That's how we speak to an issue, like, hey, help me know what's going on. And it's not about getting to resolution yet, because I think naturally our tendency is, hey, what can I do to make this stop happening? Right? Help me. Let's diagnose for a moment. Let's take some time to say, hey, Anna, is there something I'm missing? Can you help me understand? And then you can share your meaning. And then with that meaning, we can get to a whole much more robust and a better solution. And then I think what happens is, when though we don't speak to that, let's say that happens. Anna misses a deadline. I don't speak to it. So now Anna misses another deadline. Now we're recognizing we're at a whole different level. We teach a skill, and I call it unbundling with CPR. And that acronym stands for content, pattern, and relationship. And when you think about like a weed, like a dandelion, content's that top part of the weed, right? Where it's what we see, it's what we, but if we don't want to speak to it, then all of a sudden it now gets a little below surface. Now the roots are starting to set in. It's a pattern. And I think we can all agree that's a different conversation. It's one thing to say, hey, Anna, you missed a deadline. It's another thing to say, Anna, this is the third time in a row that you've missed a deadline. That's a different conversation. And then if I allow that conversation to go on even further, that root gets deeper. And now I've got a relationship issue. Now, I don't know if I can trust you. I'm not sure, how we can work together. That itself is a different conversation. And if we don't address the right conversation, it's like popping the weed off the top, and it looks gone. We've mowed over the top of it and it looks clean and we're good, but there are hidden things. And then guess what? Maybe we all experienced this. Pretty soon we're then like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, having the same conversations over and over and over. Why? Not necessarily because of them, but because of us, because we're not having the right conversation. So it's about really learning how to decipher what is the issue, right? What is really at the heart of this? And is it a content? Hey, it's a one-time thing. Hey, let's talk about the fact that you missed this deadline. What's going on? Help me understand. Or, hey, Anna, this is the third time that this has happened. Goodness. I'm wondering if there's something going on. Can we talk about it? Or if as it gets deeper, hey, Anna, this has happened quite a bit, and I'm really getting nervous about our working relationship. And if we can, I'd like to start talking about that first, and then we can get to the missed deadline and the things that are needed. Because if we don't repair this relationship, it may be hard moving forward.
You know what I really, really love about what you're saying is, what I'm hearing from you is that you're saying, without much fluff, it's all on me to make sure my relationships are top notch. And if somebody's missing their deadline, it's on me to have the conversation and to make sure that conversation, I do everything possible to add to the pool of meaning. And I would love you to talk a little bit to the pool of meaning so our listeners know what that is, because that is so key to this whole conversation.
Yeah, that has been a recent aha for me, right? Because when you think about the process, right, when we teach crucial conversations, we teach people how to show up in their very best selves. A lot of the stuff we teach is, number one, how do you bring your very best self into the conversation? How do you make sure that you have the right motives? What is it you really want? And here's a really key differential. What do you want for them, not from them? What do you want for your relationship, not from that, right? That is, and when you get your motives really pure, and you're mastering your stories, and you introduce, or you invite, you share your meaning, then the natural thing is you want them to share theirs. And I've always kind of felt like, okay, I'm going to do my part. Now it's your turn. And I've really come to the recent discovery is that it's my responsibility for you to put your meaning in. I have got to take as much ownership because I want your meaning in the pool. And we talk about your meaning. It's your insights, it's your opinions, it's your feelings. Notice feelings, not emotions, right? But we want that. I often call it a group IQ, as I refer to it. It's like I need a really robust IQ. I think one of the challenges is organizationally, we are making decisions off really small pools of meaning. Because when you stop to think about crucial conversations, I tell people all the time, this is not a course. It is not a training about communication. It is a training about results. Because where do results come from? They come from actions. What we do leads to results. Where do actions come from? They come from decisions. We make decisions that lead to actions that lead to results. Where do decisions come from? They come from information. I gather information, I make decisions that take action, I get results. Well, you tell me, how important is communication in that process? What happens if not everyone feels safe to share their meaning in that information gathering? Or if some people are dominating? I always say that if you look at the pool like truly a pool of meaning, and each one of us is a faucet that contributes to that pool, when emotions get high, those crucial moments take over, we have either one of two tendencies. Either I shut my faucet off, right, and I withdraw, selfish, because I have meaning that could help, or I crank my faucet and I dominate. I try to control the pool. I want all my meaning. No one else is going to share any meaning because it's my way or the highway. Selfish, because we're now limiting. And so the goal really in this visual is to have this nice steady stream where everyone is contributing. And when you get this full pool of meaning, now we can step back and say, okay, let's make some decisions. And we've got great insight. And when you contribute, what happens, particularly in a team setting, but also in a relationship, is it creates ownership. Right? We get this owner's mentality because we've been part of the process. And that's really what it's about. I'm all about this kind of, how do we create an owner's mentality to where we all feel ownership in the process?
Oh my goodness. I love this so much. The pool of meaning is huge, and I love the visual you've just painted. So now the next thing obviously is, we've all been in the rooms where we have, like, say, the introvert extrovert, to add a label to it, but the personalities that will withdraw, silence and violence, I guess, is a different term that you guys use in the book. But how do you manage for that if you're on one side, if you're a quieter person, or if you're an overbearing person? What would you recommend? How do we recognize who we are, and how do we use that to our advantage to help others?
Yeah, I think you just called it out right there without even noticing, is learning to recognize. I think one of the first things that you can do, we all know what our natural tendencies are, right? We know if I have my style under stress, is it to go to silence, or is it to go to verbal violence? Am I moving to more of do I withdraw or do I control? My family gives me a hard time because my natural style under stress is I go to vacuum. Whenever I get emotional, whenever I clean, right? That's what I do. And I had college roommates who years later confessed they used to get me mad on purpose so I would clean the apartment.
Oh my goodness.
But I think we become aware, and if I know that my natural tendency is to be more, withdrawing, right? I tend to turn my faucet off. Then I can say, I'm going to make myself a little more assertive. I'm going to try to insert more meaning into the pool. And if I know that I have a natural tendency to kind of be a little more controlling, I'm going to look for opportunities to kind of turn that off a little. It's just recognizing it. And then once I recognize it in me, now I can learn to recognize it in other people and realize that when we go to those places, when I'm withdrawing from dialogue in either direction, that's killing what we're trying to accomplish. So for me, I try to pay close attention when I see people shutting down, when I see people getting a little more emotional. Guess what? This conversation just got crucial. And what happens then at that point, it is no longer about the content. It is about the intent, because people are now misunderstanding to the point that they're not able, and we keep pushing our way. Our tendency is to dig in or give in. And so when we recognize that people are now moving away, stop. We got to create safety. Obviously, we're going to just keep pushing against each other. And we have to now say, how do I invite the space? Say, listen, I did not mean this. I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to do here. I'd love for you to share your meaning. Right. So it really is just really good. People who are good at crucial conversations are really good at reading the room. Right. They understand where people are coming from. And then I always like to share, it's that shared language. We have a wonderful culture. Obviously, when we're in meetings, even in Zoom, someone will say, hey, can I share my meaning? Right. And it's like, I'm just sharing my meaning, or we'll say, hey, can I push back a little bit on that? Yeah, because that's what we want. We want that. And it's not like, hey, you're wrong. Hey, let me share my point of view. Here's my perspective. And then it's like, oh, that's a really, really good. We had an experience just the other day where I was doing a training. I'd shared something and I was doing an internal training. And one of my colleagues said, hey, can I push back? And I'm like, sure. And she pushed back and was like, holy cow, that's great. That was awesome. Right. And one of the things that this person shared with me and why this is so important was that we see the world through our own limited lens. And there is a landscape far bigger than what we can see. And if we can create a bigger picture, that's going to help us tremendously.
Oh my goodness. So one, I really love what you said about asking permission. It's almost like, because when someone asks you, can I share? You're a jerk if you say no, almost like you kind of, and if you're not ready for it, it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, when I'm ready. But then it opens up the dialogue. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's really especially true. A lot of times these skills we're talking about are really helpful. I guess we talk about poor performance. That's one of the top, conversation struggles that we have organizationally. How do I speak peer to peer? How do I even speak to my direct reports? How do I, as a direct report, speak to my manager when there's some poor performance? Right. And feedback really is about timing, right? It's like, hey, do you have a minute? Can I give you some? Are you ready for it? And you want them to be ready. And I think sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, right now, I'm not in that space right now. I want to, but I know where I'm at right now. And I got my can shook up. And if we try to talk about it, it's going to explode in my face. So let me take a minute. Let me tap the can a bit. Let me simmer my emotions, being mindful of that. I don't think that's retreating. I think that's just acknowledging, hey, I'm in a space now where I'm not ready to have that kind of dialogue, but I want to have that dialogue.
I also love that it taps into our innate desire to answer questions and to know the answer. So when someone says, can I share with you, even if you don't want to hear it, there's something in humans that's so curious. We just, okay, I'm not ready yet, but really want to know you want to know, you want to hear the feedback, and it's going to be helpful in the long run, or
and when we come from the right space, again, when I'm sharing facts and I'm not sharing stories, right? I had a really powerful experience years ago when I was teaching. I was teaching high school, and I had an administrator come and observe me, which we all love when administrators sit in the back of the class and evaluate you. And after my first period class, I dismissed my students, and my administrator came up to me, and what he had done, he took a piece of paper, like a half a sheet of piece of paper, and all he did was draw a picture of my classroom. And every minute or so, he put an X where I was standing. That's all he did. The entire class, just check the clock, put an X. At the end of the class, he comes up to me and says, Scott, I thought you might like to see this. And he showed me and he told me what he did. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, holy cow. I teach to one half of my class. There were X's all on one side of the class, no X's on the other side. But imagine if he comes up to me and says, Scott, you teach to one half of your class. I'd be like, no, I don't. I get defensive because that's a story. It's true, but it's a story. It's his interpretation. But he didn't. He said, let me show you. Boom. And I'm like, holy cow. Fast forward second period, Anna. He takes the other half of the piece of paper. At the top of the paper, he writes teacher, student. At the bottom, he writes teacher, student. And all he did is he tracked questions. Every time a question was asked, he would draw a line. Who asked it? Who answered it? Who asked it? Who answered it? Right? And at the end of class, students were dismissed. He comes up to me and says, Scott, thought you might like to see this. Gave it to me. I was the smartest one in the class, Anna. I was answering every single question, even the questions that I was asking. It was like all these lines, teacher, student, right to teacher. And again, if he would have said to me, Scott, you answer on your own questions. That's a what? That's a story. It's the interpretation. And that invites emotion. I get defensive by that story. Instead, he gave me what? Facts. So when you're speaking to people, don't tell your story. Don't tell what you think that means. Just say, hey, thought you might like to see this. I'm noticing these things. Now, sometimes a story, maybe I don't get it. So I might look at this and say, so what? You know, and he says, I kind of feel like maybe you're teaching to one half of your class and they're not all. Oh, now the story. Okay. So, but again, I try not to be that husband and father. I have 4 boys who's always using my crucial conversation skills on them. And they will often say, don't use your crucial conversation skills on me. But one thing they hear me say all the time, that's a story. Right? When mom says something about a son, I say, that's a story. When son says something about their mom or their brother, that's a story. I even use these skills with my youngest, who's 11, who's a really gifted baseball player. We talk about the path to action all the time. And the stories that we tell ourselves and the emotions that creates when he strikes out. What's the story he tells himself? I stink. I'm no good. What does that lead to? Strong emotions of not feeling good, getting angry. So what does he do? Throws his helmet, throws his bat. Okay, so tell a different story. What's the story you could tell yourself? He got me, right? Pitcher made a good pitch. I missed it. What does that do to my emotion? Brings my emotions down, leads to better actions. We control the stories are what we control. That takes the emotion out of it. That's the key to everything.
That's so empowering too, when you get that concept that you actually can control, maybe not how someone else reacts to you, but you can do your best. I love what you were saying to that regard on intent, knowing and trusting the intent. And I think that's a lot of breakdown in conversation. We don't trust the intent.
I think it's 2-part. It's number one, me being really mindful of what my intentions are, because here's the challenge. When emotions kick in, the first thing to deteriorate is not our behavior, it's our motives. We suddenly translate these motives to, I want to be right, I want to win, when in reality, my motive is, I want to get the project done, I want to have great results, I want a strong relationship. And so we have to check our motives all the time because emotions will destroy them. So I think number one, always asking myself, what do I really want? I've got to constantly keep that in the forefront of my mind, because if I let those unhealthy motives sneak in, that will also destroy dialogue. But I think another key ingredient with intention is declaring it. Right. We don't let people know it. I had this interesting experience years ago when my third son was 15, learning how to drive. And maybe many people listening have had this experience where they're teaching a teenager how to drive. It was Christmas Day. I remember it clearly. We were living in North Carolina. It was Christmas Day. We had gone to see a Star Wars movie. And afterwards, my son, my 15-year-old, says, Dad, can I drive home? And I'm like, sure, that'd be great. And so if you can picture, we're in the family minivan. He's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Baby brother's in the back seat in his car seat. Mom's next to him. And in the very back of the minivan are his 2 older brothers, right? So this is a perfect scene, right? And while we're driving home, my 15-year-old showed us something. He showed us that it is possible to make a left-hand turn without signaling. You can do it. You can make a left-hand turn without signaling. And this demonstration happened at the light exchange. The light had turned yellow, and he's thinking, what? I'm going to make this left-hand turn. Well, the oncoming car is thinking, what? I'm going to make this turn. I'm going to make this light as well. And so, fortunately, miracle, right? Brakes were applied. Accident was averted, right? But my son learned something that day too, some sign language from the other car. and why? And he was, it was so funny, Anna, because he was mad. He's like, "What is their problem? Why are they being such jerks?" Because you didn't tell them you were turning. You didn't use your blinker. I'm an advocate for what I call the leadership blinker now. If we don't use our blinker, if we don't declare our intent, if we don't let people know what it is we're doing and why we're doing it, people are going to guess. And I don't know about you, Anna, but in my world, they're terrible guessers. I'm a terrible guesser. I always guess poorly. I never give people the benefit of the doubt. I hope and I teach that we'll assume positive intent, but typically we don't go, "Oh, I'm sure he's just a 15-year-old driver learning how to drive." No, my story is that guy's a jerk. He shouldn't be on the road. And so I think part of the intention is, number one, always asking myself, what do I really want? And being clear on that and letting those healthy motives move me into dialogue, especially when emotions kick in, resettling myself. As a parent, huge, right? How often do we as parents blow up, right? And all of a sudden our behavior is not aligned at all with what I want. I mean, I want my kids to come to me when they've made mistakes, right? And then they make a mistake and I snap at them. They're going to go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to tell dad next time I do that." No. And again, I don't let my motives drive my behavior. So being clear, what do I really want? And letting people know it. Use your blinker.
Yeah, you totally destroy the psychological safety when you do that. You become a
Oh,
hypocrite. Of course, they're not
absolutely.
going to trust
So
you.
we have to be clear on what we really want for them, for the relationship, and I think that helps us and better at least move to dialogue, because when I'm clear on what I really want from in this relationship for the organization, I want us to get the results. I want us to get this project. But if I get to a space where unhealthy motives click in, I want to be right, I want to win, all those things that tend to kind of sneak in, then we're never going to get the desired outcomes.
So question. So I'm in an organization or a relationship or a situation where I don't trust the intent of the person I'm talking to. So I'm more likely to blow up. I'm more likely to start a fight. How would you recommend that I proceed to let them know? Because that's now it's on me to let them know that there's a breakdown in our trust, that I don't trust their intent. How do I do that without escalating?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, there are a lot of clever stories that we tell ourselves that kind of justify our behavior. And one of the clever stories we tell ourselves is what we often call the villain story. We villainize that person, and there's no doubt that there are people who are intentionally doing these kinds of things. So I think it does come from a place of assuming some positive intent. It comes from a space where we ask ourselves, why would a decent, reasonable, rational person behave that way? Right? If I see someone who's done something that I'm like, "Holy cow, I can't believe you did that," maybe stop for a minute and ask yourself, okay, why? Why might you be doing that? And when I start to, it's that old adage, put yourself in their shoes a little bit, try to kind of give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But I think when there are those moments, I kind of go through a phase, right? I try to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume positive intent. And if I really I'm not certain that maybe there is some bad intent there, I may say some funny thing like, "Hey, if I thought you did that on purpose, I'd be really upset with you." Right? I'm just going to throw it out there, I'll plant a little seed that, hey, and then if I think we do get to that point where it really is, I think now we're having that relate. Now the dandelion has got a deep root. And it's now saying, hey, can we talk about something that's been bothering me? Yeah, I mean, we've been working on this project. It's not about the project, it's about our relationship. And I want to make sure that we have a relationship that's strong. We can come to each other, we can work together. Can we talk about a couple of things that I've noticed? And then I'm again going back, we talked about before. Here's some of the things that I've noticed. And I share these specific things, they're facts, I can see them. Then I can say, and when that happens, I have a really hard time trusting you. Can you help me know what's going on? And now we're in what? We're in dialogue. Now we can talk about those issues, and they can share their meaning, and we can speak to those things. So I think, but it goes back to, and I think there are going to be those times when I ask my question, what do I really want for this? When I go, nothing. I think it's okay to say that not every crucial conversation has to be had. I mean, there are going to be some moments where it's like, you know what? I don't need something, I don't need to have, I say, for example, a coach of my son's teams, or, someone else, someone on the peripheral that's not like super really, I don't know that I have to go invest the time and energy to have this relationship conversation. I can just say it is what it is, recognize that that's who they are, and not have to really, and just have to deal with it. But I think when we're talking about personal family relationships, team relationships, yeah, then we have to say, okay, what do I really want? And declare that. That's the blinker. I'm going to use the blinker up front. Anna, I'd like to talk to you about how we work together, because it's important to me that you and I have a really, really strong relationship, that when things break down, we can talk to each other, that when things are not going right, we can address those things. And there've been a couple of things that have been happening lately that have made it hard for me to do that. Can we talk about that? And they're going to be like, whoa, but okay. And then I can start. I can say, hey, here's what I've noticed, right? Here's what I'm beginning to have some trust issues. I don't like that way that feels. Can we talk about it? Can you help me understand? Am I missing something? And then just, again, now I'm getting them to share their meaning.
Yeah, you're inviting that information into the pool of meaning.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Okay, so I know we've gone a little bit over, but that's okay because this is amazing. I have to know before we sign off, if you were to go back and give yourself, your younger self, a piece of advice, what would you give?
So just back a couple of years then, huh?
Of course.
That's a really good question. I think because what I've noticed, it's funny because I have 4 boys. They're 26, 24, 20, and 11. And
wow.
There's always a pause when I go from 3 to 4. And I always jokingly say that they've had 2 different dads, right? Because, now I'm in this training space where I'm teaching these kind of behaviors and skills. And I think if I was to go back, I would focus more on what I really want. As a father, as a teacher, I let emotions often get in the way. And I was not mindful of what I really wanted, and my behaviors didn't always match what my motives were. And so I would focus so much more on what do I want for them, for our relationship, for the circumstance, and not from them. I was much more, I want you to change. And that happens when people come to me and I coach them and I say, what do you really want? And they said, I want them to change. Okay, but what do you really want for them? Right? I want for them to this. What do you want for your relationship? I want this. What do you want for the result? I want this. I would let my pure motives drive more what I did.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. Okay. So, everybody that's watching this right now, obviously you have connected with Scott. You've seen how incredible he is, and you want to continue your journey with him and his work, because why wouldn't you? This stuff literally changes your life, people. You can't avoid it. It's amazing. It's amazing what it does for you. I speak to this firsthand. So, Scott, how do people reach you, contact you, continue their journey with you?
Yeah, well, you can always contact me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Scott Robley is my hand, at Scott Robley there at LinkedIn. But if you really want the content, which is really, I'm just a conduit. I'm just here sharing some great insights and messages from our training. Go to vitalsmarts.com. We've got great websites. Go to the book, read the book. We've got some great courses. We've got some on-demand courses you can take on your own, self-paced, self-guided. We've got newsletters where we're constantly, people are sending us in like real life questions, and and we respond to those questions. So I would just be connected to Vital Smarts in every way, because of our commitment, we truly are here to help people be the very best selves, to improve and to just make the world a better place to live in.
Amazing, amazing. And for everybody watching, those links are dropped down below. Click on them, get access. There's a whole series of books too. This isn't the only book. There's Crucial Accountability. They have a whole series. They're wonderful, beautiful things. Definitely click those links. And thank you, Scott, so much for your time today.
Anna, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to have had some time with you.